until this individual commits a sin. Please listen. Commits a sin. And from that white spot in the heart, or from the heart itself, a black speck emerges and stains the heart of that individual. Stains the heart. And then the hadith continues. And it's very beautiful what the Imam says, but extremely scary. We're going to get to that part. But we're going to segue into what the Imam alayhi salam was alluding to. And that is the effect of the sin on my heart. The effect of that venom on my heart. They tell us that the effects of the sin are 3, maybe more, but we're going to talk about 3. The first one, my brothers and sisters, is, as we said, it dirties that vessel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala embedded in us, that is meant to only take in what is pure. And when that vessel, my brothers and sisters, is dirty, as we said, the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot enter that heart, or has a harder time entering that heart. Just the same way that if I took this glass, this cup of water, and I filled it with water, with pure water, up to the top, and please listen closely, because the heart is exactly like this cup, the exact same way, and it's beautiful how it is, and I'll tell you how it is exactly. Just like this cup, I'll fill it all the way with water up until the top. Pure water. You can see right through it. Until I sin. And me sinning is equivalent of me taking dirt off the ground outside and sprinkling it inside of this vessel and turning it and spinning it and stirring it. What happens to the vessel? It becomes brown. Once it becomes brown, 2 things happen. Number 1, if I keep on pouring pure water, what's going to happen to the pure water that comes into this vessel? What happens to it? It becomes dirty. It becomes dirty. Until I keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring, until what eventually happens? It becomes clean. That's the meaning of the ayah when it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at an individual, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will erase the sins from the good actions that they commit. The good actions will fill the vessel. This is obviously metaphorically, but you can actually look at it. Fills the vessel to a point where the dirtiness is washed away. But let's just say this individual is constantly putting into the cup pure water and dirty water. What happens?
It stays dirty.
It stays dirty. Because they're constantly putting in the good and constantly putting in the bad. And our ulama say, Ridwanullah alayhim, that when an individual is constantly putting in the good and the bad, then the effect is always there. The negative effect is always going to be there relative to the amount of good and the amount of bad that is coming into the vessel. Just the same way, the density of the dirt within the vessel, within the cup, is relative to the amount of dirt and the amount of water you put inside the cup. In other words, the more dirt you put inside the cup, the dirtier the water becomes. And the more water you pour in, the more that cancels out. And so you find that's why individuals are able to be affected by the words of Allah and Ahlul Bayt more than other individuals. That's why some people, when they listen to the hadith of Ahlul Bayt, it resonates within them. While others, they'll listen to millions of hadiths. They can't. That's why some people find it extremely difficult to wake up for Salat al-Fajr, while other people, when it comes 5:30, 6:30, whatever time of Fajr is, they're right then awake. That's why some people don't even need an alarm to wake up for Salat al-Fajr, while others, you can drop a nuclear bomb on temp and they won't wake up. Other factors play a role, obviously. But the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot go into that heart. Cannot touch that individual. The same way it will touch another one. That's the first effect of the sin. The second effect of the sin is it has an outside external effect. We spoke about the sin when it comes to the internal effect that it has on the soul. Let's talk about the external effects of the sin. Because the sin is very complicated. Why? I commit it. It's an external act, yes, that affects me internally. But then that internal effect translates into my actions outwardly again. And also, that external effect changes the world and the environment around me. Rather, that sin itself manifests itself in the external world of existence in a shape and a form that me and you may not be able to comprehend, but we will see on the Day of Judgment. What am I trying to say? Let me not use big words. Our sins, my brothers and sisters, take forms that me and you may not understand. We call this tajseed al-a'mal. Some of the ulama differed on this issue. But a lot of the ulama actually confirm it and say it's from the Quran. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they will see their actions in front of them on the Day of Judgment. The action itself that they committed takes a form on the Day of Judgment. And some of the actions translate into the very punishment that some of us, or for example myself, I will feel on the Day of Judgment. Go to the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does He say about ghibah? We always hear this on the minbar, but what's the meaning of this ayah? Where He says, the person who is doing ghibah, backbiting their friend, their mu'min brother or sister, it's as if they are eating their brother or sister's flesh. The ayah says, would you like to eat your brother or sister's flesh? That is exactly what we do when we commit ghibah. Is it metaphorical or is it literal? No. Our ulama say that it is literal, but we don't understand it. We can't comprehend it because it's in a realm that is different than ours. But the reality behind that action is exactly that. That's why it is said that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam once, it is narrated that he heard a woman that was fasting speak ill, I believe, about her servant or another individual, another person, another mu'min. And so he told this woman, go and eat. Wallahu alam, she might have been doing a mustahab sawm, mustahab fast. Go and eat. She says, why? He says to her, what's the point of your fast if you just ate? How did I eat? You just backbited your fellow brother or sister. It equates eating. Eating what? Eating the flesh of that individual. The same way, it means the same thing. On the Day of Judgment, the punishment of the person who commits ghibah could be eating the rotting flesh of a human being. That is the punishment. That is the punishment. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, وَوَجَدُوا مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبِّكَ أَحَدًا وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. Surah 5. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not oppress anyone. That they saw, the reading of the ayah, they saw exactly what they committed manifest itself in front of them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not oppress the slaves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not oppress the people. Our ulama are very keen because they are able to see these things while me and you may not be able to see them and understand them. It is said, one of our ulama, one of the greatest ulama that lived, his name was Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum. And the family of Bahr al-Ulum in Najaf is a big family. And that's good, so they'll pinpoint exactly which one I'm speaking about. But it's a famous story that's known about one of the biggest ulama of Al-Bahr al-Ulum. Listen what happened to him. Listen what happened, please, my brothers and sisters. It is said, Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum was very famous in Najaf at his time, and he had kids. And he had a son that was a bit older. And it is said this son was not known to be pious. Rather, he was known to be what we call, in the layman's terms, in the Lebanese terms, az'a. He was a very, very, very bad guy. Okay? Not a good person at all. What he used to do is he used to walk in the markets where people would just buy their fruits and vegetables. And he'd take out a knife, just because, for no reason. Heck. He would cut the bags of the people that just bought their groceries and just run away or walk away. Just because, for no reason at all. He just had that side, the evil side to him. Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum is fed up with his son. He says, what did I do? What mistake did I do when it came to actually bringing up my son? What did I do that was wrong? So he thinks and thinks and he says, I can't remember anything. Let me go back to his mother. So listen what happens. He goes back to his wife, the mother of his son, and says to her, I know I didn't do anything wrong with our son. Why he has such an evil personality like that, I don't understand. Did you do anything? She says, I remember one thing. And please listen. Says, I remember one thing. And for those who have children, think of where you're feeding your children from, please. Listen to the story. Listen. When we put food on the table, where are we getting the money from? Listen to the story. She says, when I was pregnant with your son, I was walking in the meadows and I was walking in the fields. And over the path that I was walking, there was a pomegranate tree. And this pomegranate tree had one of the fruits that was hanging right over the path, or close to the path. And I, as a pregnant woman, looked at that pomegranate tree, and looked at that pomegranate, and wanted, right at that moment, we all know how some pregnant women become, right at that moment, I wanted pomegranates. SubhanAllah. Right at that moment. And I couldn't wait. I needed it. So listen to what she said. She said, I went to that pomegranate tree. I took the pin from my hijab, I stuck it inside the pomegranate, I took it out, and I sucked on the little amounts of juice that came out from the pomegranate. That's it. That's all I did. That's all I did. He said, see that pin that you used to take away the rizq, to take away the sustenance of somebody else? That itself has now become the knife in your son's hand that is cutting the bags of the people. Your son ate haram, even that much haram. And it's affected his soul. That the goodness of the soul became murky and dark. And he chose to live his life like this because the nur of Allah could not enter the vessel that was dirty. Not that he didn't have a choice. No, he had a choice. But that haram dirtied the vessel. And he knew what was right or wrong. But he chose to act in this way. Our af'al, our actions take a manifestation of its own, which we will see on the Day of Judgment. وَلِيَعَذْ بِاللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Now, that's the second effect. As for the third effect, and it's the most dangerous effect of the sins, my brothers and sisters, please listen here. It's the continuation of the hadith we began with by Imam al-Baqir, where he says, everybody has the white speck. If they sin, a dark speck emerges on their hearts. We stop there. Let's continue the hadith and we'll understand the third and the most dangerous effect of the sin. Listen to this. Listen to this. He says, until that speck If the person does not repent, that speck will continue to grow with the sins they keep on committing until the heart becomes darkened by the sins to a point where there is no turning back for that person. The same way that if I took this piece of glass and I went to a mound of dirt outside and I scooped a whole amount of dirt, and inside this glass, just dirt. After a while, that dirt is going to settle. And you're not going to be able to put water inside the cup because the water is going to touch the dirt on the top and flow right over it. Is there turning back? Can you make this cup? Can you make this cup pure again? Absolutely not. The Imam says there are individuals who will experience the locking of the heart. Just like this vessel locked itself and water was not able to penetrate the dirt on the very top. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ بَلْ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Are they not able to understand the Quran? Nay, no. On their hearts there is a lock. What's the effect of the locking of the soul? They are unable to understand what is being said to them. And so the words of the Ahlul Bayt, the Quran, the truth, if it gets to them, they can never accept it. It might touch them, but they can never accept it on a practical level. The constant sin. They're not able to accept anything else except sin. The locking of the heart, my brothers and sisters. That's the final effect. And when a person reaches that point, our ulama say that this locking of the heart gets to a point where even the belief of that individual is in jeopardy. Not the actions, not whether they're going to heaven or hell because of their actions and the way they live their life. No, the belief of that individual is in jeopardy. The belief, what they believe. Their aqeedah. Their aqeedah. Let me tell you exactly what I'm trying to say. Let me tell you. In my second year, I believe, of Hawza, or even the first year, I was taking an akhlaq class, a morals class, with my beloved Sheikh, I think Sheikh Ahmed Nasruddin. He was giving us an akhlaq class, ethics, and he told us, each and every one of you, pick a vice, something that is haram, like for example, ghiba, namima, one of these vices, and go and prepare a paper talking about this vice. Go look into the books of akhlaq and see the different vices that are, the different effects of that vice. Write a paper. So alhamdulillah, I had the honor of picking up the book of Allama Dustaghaib al-Shirazi. His book, Al-Dhunub al-Kabira, The Greater Sins. Please read that book. Very good book. I opened that book and I started to look at the title, An-Namima. I got the topic of An-Namima. For those who may not know what An-Namima is, An-Namima is where two people are doing ghiba, or one person is doing ghiba, backbiting another individual, and you hear them speaking. So instead of keeping quiet or defending your brother, you go and tell this person, hey, so-and-so was speaking about you. That's what Namima is. So it's being the owl, the middleman in the middle, the person in the middle. So I took Namima. I was reading about Namima until the Sayyid comes to a story that will happen to one of the ulama. These are not fairy tales. Please, my brothers and sisters, we're not talking fairy tales. We're talking ulama, warajih, scholars. He says, in his book, he says, one of the scholars had a student in the Hawza. In the Hawza, I'm talking beside Amir al-Mu'mineen. In the Hawza. He had a student, and this student was his best student. The best student in the class. student being the best student in the class, there was high hopes for that student. Till one night that alim gets news. Fulan al-Fulani, let's call him right now Amr. Let's call him Amr. Amr is on his deathbed. He's dying. Something happened to him. He's dying. So the alim, he gets up, puts on his clothes, and goes towards the house of Amr. Goes inside, sits beside Amr, and Amr is actually dying. He's in his last moments. The Sayyid or the alim, I believe he was a Sayyid, he picks up the Quran, opens it to Surah Yasin. And he begins reciting, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Yasin, wal-Quran al-Hakim, innaka lamin al-mursaleen. He interrupts him and says, stop reading. Listen. Stop reading. The alim says, okay. Closes the Quran, puts it. This man's soul is coming out. He's breathing his last breaths. And if a person is dying in front of you, you can tell. Well, he's breathing his last breaths. He's breathing his last breaths. The alim says, say La ilaha illallah. This Hawza student says, I don't believe in any of this. And I am going to die a kafir. And he dies a disbeliever at that very moment. The Sayyid is puzzled. What in God's name just happened? This is my best student. This is the person, if I asked him to prove the existence of God, he can give an entire sermon. He dies a disbeliever. He's distraught. Sayyid al-Staghaib says, this alim goes back home, and he was one of the ulama that had the ability, at least at that point in time, to delve into the realms of al-manam. So, alim al-ru'ya, we call it. So he was able, through the dreams, to transcend into the different realms, into a different realm, where he saw this very student being dragged to hell by the malaika, he says. While he's being dragged to hell, he looks at him and says, why did you do this? Look at you now. The Hawza student said, I used to commit 3 sins that led me here. Listen to this. Listen to this. I used to not even pray, although I was learning ahkam as-salat. Put that aside. Okay, we understand. He said, I had a stomach problem, and I used to have to drink wine to get the pain to go away. I needed alcohol to get this pain to go away. So I put that aside. Okay, we understand. Third, I used to do namima. I used to cause problems between the people of my society. I used to go to this person and say, did you hear what this person said about you? And go to that very same person and say, did you hear what this guy said about you? And sit back and watch. Allah says, sure. It says what? I'm loyal to my friends, so I have to go and tell them what this person said about them. No, that's not how it works. Nonetheless, we can talk about ghibah and namimah inshallah tomorrow. What led him to where he went? Was it his disbelief? No. He was learning about belief every single day in class. It was the sin. Locked his heart. At the very moment of where he's supposed to proclaim his iman, he shows his true colors and shows himself to be a disbeliever.